Hello everyone, I'm Patty, the girl with blue energy. It's been quite a while since I've made a video. This one's going to be heavily unedited, but it's something I wanted to talk about. But before I get into it, thank you to all my new subscribers. I'm sorry I've been gone away for so long, but I'm working a full-time job right now and going to school. I'm no longer doing my business, and so I'm kind of putting that first. But today, I want to talk about something that's been affecting my life personally and something that I think all of us with bipolar disorder struggle with. I'm talking about bipolar in the workplace, how to have a job and keep a job when you have bipolar disorder. One of the things I've read from a lot of bipolar people, especially bipolar entrepreneurs, which I am one of them, is that maybe the typical 9-to-5 job isn't right for you, or maybe you need to find a special job for you special people, because those of us with bipolar disorder can't hold down, a professional job or a job that has stress, and we need to have our flex time, and we just can't cut it in the real world. We need to have a special job, or we need to get on disability. Well, I live here in Albuquerque now, and I can tell you that a lot of the people in Albuquerque don't get the luxury of, I can't make it in the real world, I'm going to get a special job. A lot of the people here work 2 jobs and a side gig and have mental health issues, and they still go to work. And these are the people I'm talking to in this video, because I think that's most of us. I think that's most of America. You don't get to just quit working because you have a mental illness. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it today, because those of us who struggle with it need practical tips for coping in the real world. Once upon a time, I kind of checked out. I started my own business because I really just couldn't handle the stress of the real world, essentially. And that wasn't a good thing for me. It left me isolated. It left me unprepared for dealing with toxic people, terrible bosses, workplace situations, and life situations that you just have to deal with. So getting on disability or getting a perfect gig for you is just not a realistic goal for people with bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder does, in fact, disable us. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, it is one of the most disabling mental health conditions. 82% of people with bipolar disorder are severely impaired. However, only 30% of people with bipolar disorder qualify for disability. So if you think you're going to opt out of the workforce because you can't cut it, it's not a realistic option. So you can just feel crappy about yourself, or not be able to hold a job, or you can work on the things you need to work on about you to be able to hold a job with your bipolar disorder. Before I get into, how to function in your job, let's talk about how having bipolar disorder affects your job, whatever it may be. For me, and I'm going to guess this is most of you, some of the big things it does is when I'm manic, which I just went through, and I'm still kind of on the hypomanic phase. I am really scatterbrained. I can't remember things. I forget what I'm doing. I can't stay on task, and I talk a lot, and I will drive everybody in the workplace crazy. I talk a lot. Everybody at my work knows I'm bipolar. I actually know 3 other people in my workplace that have bipolar disorder, and I think to myself, how is it that you may have bipolar disorder, but I'm pretty sure nobody knows it. Everybody in my workplace knows I have bipolar and ADHD. It's not something I can hide, even if I wanted to. So bipolar disorder affects me a lot. I talk a lot. I get off track. I drive people crazy. I get distracted and don't get my work done. Aside from that, I overshare. I will cross boundaries sometimes and can make people really uncomfortable. They may not say make them uncomfortable. I think most people just laugh at me about this, but I have made people uncomfortable because I can get clingy, just share stuff that's just a little way too personal. I do it on Facebook all the time. but I do it in real life. So those are some of the things. I can act completely inappropriate, immature, or just be all over the place. And it can also cause me to miss work because you're not sleeping well, and then you get sick, and then you get migraines, or you just have what I call a mental day, and you just can't go to work. I haven't had that problem so much, other than I've been sick a lot this year, but in the past, I would have depression that would get so incapacitating that I literally just couldn't get out of bed. Like, they could have offered me $1 million and I still wouldn't have moved from the bed. So bipolar disorder can be mentally and physically disabling. It takes a toll on your energy. You're either extremely energetic and can do a lot, or you're completely exhausted and can't get anything done. It has a lot of physical symptoms that affect your job. So that's how it affects your job. But yes, you can still hold down a job being all bipolar, eccentric, ADHD, chatty patty, and all. So now I'm going to get into some of the tips on how I've learned to handle a job in the real world with bipolar disorder. And one of those questions people ask a lot, or maybe they don't ask, but I'm going to bring up is, should you talk about it? Should you tell your coworkers and your boss you have bipolar disorder, or should you keep that to yourself? Is talking about your bipolar disorder going to set you up for failure in the workplace? Now, I'm going to say times have changed a lot. So back when I was first diagnosed, talking about bipolar disorder seemed to make work more challenging for me. But in today's workforce, we have a lot more open-minded people. A lot of people are more educated on mental illness and bipolar disorder, and many people have family and loved ones with it. So recent research, there was a study on whether you should disclose your bipolar disorder that was published in the Journal of Mental Health Policy, and it said that disclosing your bipolar disorder to your employers actually increases your chances of gainful employment, and it reduces your stress level. And I'm going to tell you, I have found this to be true. I first felt really uncomfortable talking about it to people. I'm like, I probably shouldn't tell my boss or my coworkers I have bipolar disorder. But what I found is that when your coworkers and your boss know that you have bipolar disorder, they're a little bit more understanding about when you need days off from mental health. In fact, a lot of workplace employers will not encourage you to like call in because I'm feeling mental today, but they understand that if you're having a mental day, that maybe coming to work isn't the best for you or the company. I have found my employers very supportive and accepting of my mental health issues. And I talk about it openly, even though it often makes me feel self-conscious and weird, but to help normalize bipolar in the workplace. I remember when I was breastfeeding my oldest son, who's now 24, I was like one of the first women that ever breastfed at work. Sometimes you got to be the trailblazer, and I don't really like being the trailblazer for bipolar disorder, but sometimes having people that talk about it openly destigmatizes it in the workplace. And, the study kind of reassured me on that, so that if and when, and I plan to because I'm trying to go to school right now, when I get into a professional field, I think I'm going to have the same strategy of letting my employers know, hey, I have bipolar disorder. I do my best to manage it, but I have moments when you're going to see it at work. I don't let it affect my job performance, but you may notice it, and if I need to take a breather to self-regulate, then I need to take a breather. So now I'm going to quickly talk about my tips for managing bipolar disorder in the workplace. One, I have a good support system. Most of the people I work with know I have bipolar and ADHD, and amazingly, most of them are pretty understanding and supportive of me. I mean, a lot of them have family members and friends that have it, so they understand. So for me, one of the tips is to not be alone in your head with it. It's okay to tell people that you have bipolar disorder. Yes, you may need to be selective about who you talk to about it. But for me, I've just I talk to people about it. You have to go with your own comfort zone, but having a support system in your workplace will make it less stressful and make it easier for you to hold down your job. My second tip is keep a good sleep routine, which I say that in every single video, but when my sleep routine gets off, I get really, I either get manic, I get migraines, or I get really depressed, or I get manic and then really depressed. So try to keep a good sleep routine. If you have to work swing shifts, make sure you can get as much sleep as possible. There are some days where I can only get 7 hours of sleep, but I try to maintain a 7 to 8 hour sleep schedule, and I flat out refuse to do the I'm working till midnight and you're going to have me back in at 6 a.m. If your employers are expecting you to function on 4 hours of sleep, I think you need another job. So have a good sleep routine. Have a stress management system, which should include self-care, exercise, good sleep, and a good support system. Not over-caffeinating yourself because you're trying to get too much done, or not sleeping, or not exercising. Do have a good stress management plan for yourself and have a good support system. The other thing I do is I take time off when I need it. I sometimes schedule off time off. Like, I don't do it that often because I like to work, but if I know, for example, 4th of July is a bad day for me, I don't work that day. I've done it once and I could have lost my job that day. So if you know that there's a day that's going to be stressful for you, ask for it off. If you need to call in because you know you're going to be losing crap that day, it's okay to do it. You don't want to be a slacker and call in all the time, but if you need a mental health day, your work should have sick days, and that should include taking care of your mental health, not just your physical health. But this is probably my biggest tip is don't run from your job. One of the reasons I stay at my job when I'm constantly having these freakouts of everybody thinks I'm mental, nobody likes me, I'm embarrassing myself, I need to go get another job and start over where people don't think I'm a Looney Tune. These are just my feelings. One of the reasons I'm sticking with my job is because of the continuity and stability of keeping a job. Bipolar people a lot of times flake out on jobs. When it gets to be too much, we quit and we go find another job. Sticking with the same job teaches you how to deal with the circumstances that come up in the workplace. It teaches you how to not just run away when things get stressful or just throw your hands up and say, I'm bipolar, I quit, I got fired again. You don't have to keep getting fired. You can work on the things you need to do, self-regulate so you can hold down your job. But that requires you to do some things to make sure you stay stable, which I've mentioned a lot. Get enough sleep, have a good support system, and if you're taking meds, take your meds consistently. So another thing I'm going to say that I learned from my previous place I worked is don't tolerate toxic employees, toxic coworkers, toxic work environment. Unfortunately, you're not the only person with a mental illness at your job. There's a good chance that you have jerks, manipulators, toxic people that trigger you in your job. They're everywhere. So you have to learn how to stand up for yourself and not tolerate people that create a toxic and stressful work environment. I know I've said I'm sticking with my job, but I also have boundaries, and if I'm dealing with a toxic place, I will choose a different workplace. Right now, I'm not in a toxic workplace, and I'm trying to make it work by not running away from my bipolar disorder or freaking out because people know I'm a little bit mental. I'm going to mention two other things as tips. I said earlier, if you need time off from work, you should take it. There's something called intermittent FMLA. If you work at a job, and I don't know the stats on this, and I probably should have looked into this before making this video, but research it. Intermittent FMLA allows you to take off time when you need it. And it doesn't mean you have to have 12 weeks all off at one time. If you have a serious mental illness, you can get your doctor to fill out a form for intermittent FMLA, and then if you have a day where you need to call in because you're just not well, you can take the day off without having to stress about losing your job. Yes, your employers could make you feel stressed, but you have coverage from your healthcare provider and from our legal system for you to be able to take time off if you need it and have bipolar disorder. And this is my final tip for everyone, and this isn't just for people with bipolar disorder, but people in general. Self-love, self-love, self-love. You're going to screw up. You're going to get manic. I've spent the last, I'm going to be turning 51 in another month, and I've spent my whole life trying to stop being bipolar. I think if I get my keto right, if I do my exercise, if I go to bed, if I have a stable relationship, just do this, I will stop being bipolar. One of the things you really need to understand and accept is that if you have bipolar disorder, it is a lifelong condition. It's not just going to go away, whether you're taking medication or you do everything correctly. You're going to have episodes of hypomania and depression. It's going to happen. And the best advice I can give to you is when it happens, you're going to feel this sense of embarrassment and shame. And that's where self-love comes in. And that's why I talk about this, because you need to know that it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to be human. It's okay to be a little bit hypomanic or depressed in the workplace. People are a little more understanding than you think. And so if you had a moment where you were a little bit more bipolar than you wanted to in the workplace, go home, take a breather, get some sleep, forgive yourself, and get back at it the next day. It's not catastrophic. You're not going to lose your job because you had a bad day. And even if you, for some reason, do lose your job, it's not the end of the world. You're still capable of getting a job and holding down a job and being emotionally and mentally stable. So these are my tips. I'd love to hear from other people who are struggling with bipolar in the workplace. How do you hold down your job and keep it together while maintaining a full-time job or part-time job? And I want to mention one more thing. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. I have been mind blown. I've been checking my stats. I do check in. I don't always have time to comment, but I do check in. Thank you for subscribing, leaving your comments, and supporting me. And if you like my content, please help me grow this channel. I'm trying to do this to make people with bipolar disorder feel a little bit more comfortable and less alone. And I really appreciate all the feedback I get. So thanks for tuning in. And if you liked my video, please click the subscribe button and support my channel.